Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good afternoon out there, everyone, and welcome to your number one source for Native American television news. It's Native News Today. I'm your host, Jason Salzman, joining you, as always, from the Muskogee Media Studios as we get ready for a special edition Native News Today. That's right. This past week, it was Indigenous Peoples Day, and we're getting ready for Native American Heritage Month. And with Indigenous Peoples Day replacing Columbus Day at a lot of places here at the Muskogee Creek Nation, University of Oklahoma, all kinds of places around the country doing this. We wanted to symbolize it in our own way on Native News. And if you're a fan of this show, you know how the opener starts with our tribute to Phillip Deere. And in keeping in that spirit, we want to show you his speech from the Sovereignty Symposium in the 70s. We know you all love it. That was why we wanted to show it today.
As I have been introduced already, I don't want to go in too much about myself. I never did approve of any speaker who uses too many I's. And those are some of the kind of speakers that I usually wind up listening to. I did this, I am this, and I do this for you people. Those kind of statements I never did care too much for. I like to have somebody else to praise another person instead of a person himself speaking of himself all the time. First, I'd like to talk about Indian religion. And since I was one time a student at Bacone College, it sounds like that I have a good college education, but I don't. I went there for a few years and stayed at the Moreau Indian Orphan Home there, and I have never completed the grade school. So my education was limited. And no doubt about it, there's no doubt about it that there will be some mistakes. According to how you have been educated, you will cite some mistakes in my speeches. But you're going to have to overlook that because you're facing an Indian this afternoon. I am a full-blood member of the Muskogee Creek tribe. I grew up speaking my language first, then I began to learn the borrowed language. In my native language, I am pretty sure that I do not make too many mistakes in my language, but in English, I often make mistakes. But I want you to overlook them. And at the end of my speech, if there is any questions that you may want to ask, you will be free to do that. But I'm going to take you back to the dawn of creation, according to the way my ancestors told me. What I have to tell you, or what I am going to speak about, you will probably never find it in the libraries. The most educated person in the United States does not have this history. The history of my people were preserved in the medicine man. When we speak of a medicine man, most people think of somebody that's always picking up herbs, recommending medicine, but there is more to it in my tribe. For other tribes, I cannot speak too much for other tribes because I do not understand some of their customs, some of their ways of making medicine. But in my Creek tribe, I understand that. How one becomes a medicine man, all the way up to his dying days, I can understand the life of a medicine man. I am more familiar with my tribe, so that's what I am going to bring out to you. The word Muskogee is our original names and not the Creeks. The word Creek was never used until later years, probably somewhere in 1800s. But prior to that, we were called Muskogee. And from the very beginning of times, our name Muskogee was a longer word. Muskogee is only a short word for our tribe. Our tribe's name was Masiaksokche, which means those who possesses herbs. At one time, somewheres in the west, the earth opened its mouth. 3 groups of people came out of this earth and went west. When they went further west, they lived in the land of fog, the land that covered with fog. The sun was never seen, nor did they see one another in speaking to each other. Because of the thickness of the fog, they never could see one another clear. One day, the wind came and blew the fog away. And the first animal that was seen by my people, they became that clan. And the first animal that was seen was the bear. So that group became the Bear Clan, which has a lot to do with tradition, ceremonies, that we have our ceremonial grounds. All these clans has a lot to do with it, down to this date. The Bear Clan was originated there, and many others, birds, deers, and all kinds of animal clans were originated there. Since the wind came and blew the fog away, the Wind Clan had a position in the tribe. I am of the Wind Clan. My father was a Bear Clan. And therefore, I was chosen to hold a position, not by the people, not by election, not by appointment, does one become a medicine man. A medicine man is observed from his birth on up until a certain age by the older medicine man. If he is qualified to become a medicine man, then he begins training at early age. Different herbs are told to him what they are good for. And as time goes by, he begins to pick up more and more from the older medicine men. And then he never goes out to publish himself or to announce himself. By his actions and by his looks, by his ways, he is judged as a medicine man. Then someday someone will come to him for medicine, and he prepares a medicine for this person. Then later on, he becomes well known to the tribe. He never steps out to tell you that he knows this and he knows that. All of his knowledge is kept in secret in his heart. Even his children never learns everything from his father, even though he is a medicine man. Getting back to our story of the creation. In this land, everything was filthy. Everything was dirty. Nothing was clean. The only clean thing that eyes could see was the sun coming up from the east. So my people decided to go see where the sun was coming from, because it was so bright, and that was the only cleanest thing that could be seen. So they traveled east, and they went as far as to a river, a red, thick, slimy river, in which they could not cross. So they followed the river to another river that joined this river. In between the two rivers, there was a mountain that thundered all the time, and red smoke came from the top of this mountain. They stood there at this mountain and saw a post beneath this mountain that shook all the time. And by the directions of the elders, they picked out a motherless child and slammed it against this pole, and the pole stopped. And then they gained the knowledge of herbs. 4 herbs was introduced to my tribe. One known as the red willow root, the other snake root, and the other spicewood. Also, the small leaf tobacco was given to them at the foot of this mountain. Here they begin to possess the herbs for healing and for many other things. Here they obtained the first fire, which was given to them by the Creator. Then they went east again. They took the pole with them, and the pole gave them directions which way to travel. And there is no telling how many years, maybe hundreds of years, they traveled, camping at certain areas and following the directions of this pole. Many customs and traditions that we have today were picked up on this journey. While traveling east, whichever way the pole fell, that's the directions that they took. And they traveled all the way to the east coast. Every morning, it was a custom by my people that they get up before the sun came up, because they were going to see the sun. Going to the mountains, they stood on the top of the mountain, and in ancient language, they cried out, "Go Hashida," which means, "Where is the sun?" And that group of people became the Kasista people, and we identify these people today. Their descendants live around the vicinity of Okmulgee. Some 300 or 400 or maybe more of the first people's descendants still live with us now. The second group of people, known as the Kawita people, they are still identified. Some live in around Muskogee area today, some around Eufaula area. The third group of people, in which the history says that they were Chickasaws. Chickasaw is another tribe, but they did have some affiliation with the Kasista people in ancient times. And these three groups of people, they are still here today. Their descendants are still with us today. They had ceremonial grounds in which they attended. They still respected the sun, because that was the cleanest things that I could see. When traveling, they went all the way to the east coast, and they seen the sun coming up out of the ocean. Here is the custom that was picked up by my people, that everything they did, they went to the river to take a bath, because it was thought that the sun takes a bath every morning. Therefore, it is so clean and bright. To this day, everything my tribe does concerning medicine, tribal ceremonial grounds that we have, they still yet go to the river to take a bath. In winter months, a traditional Indian, which I would say a full-blood maybe, Indian that has always lived according to his traditions, will go to the sweat lodge. No matter how deep the snow is, no matter how thick the ice is on the water, coming out of the sweat lodge, he will go to the river and take a bath. This I practiced many years ago. Today, I still yet practice that. Many of my own people, the Creek people, even though they have neglected sweat lodge, I still go to my sweat lodge. I myself has experienced what the sweat lodge has done for me. Some 3 or 4 years ago, when I was down with my heart, I had to walk around my yard with a walking stick. I still have 2 walking sticks at home that I used in my yard. I could not go to the mailbox to even check my mail without being short-winded. I had to stop. Many times I had to lay down and rest. I used my sweat lodge for 1 whole month, not missing a single day. I went through the sweat lodge 1 month. Then I began to put my walking stick away. I myself has experienced what the sweat lodge has done for me. I understand that this is the religion that was given to us by the Creator. All Indians believe, not only the Creek people, all Indians believe in the creation. Indian people are closely related to nature. Therefore, it hurts an Indian whenever his land is being ripped off. When he sees his timber going down, there you find trouble with the Indians. You may wonder why the Indians are protesting, why the Indians are demonstrating all over the country. Why did we have the wars of yesteryear? Why did Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, and many others, Chief Joseph, why did they fight in the old days? They fought to preserve that religion. They fought to preserve their culture. that their Indian people may be able to speak their language. Today, I see that changes are being made for this Indian country, and I am proud to see my Indian people standing up once more. A few years ago, some 20, 30 years ago, there was a time when we went to these schools. We were not permitted to speak our language. Some of the older people understands that. That's how come some of our Indian people does not know their language, because in this school, they were told not to speak their language. I myself, attending right over here at Bacon, I had to associate with other tribes so I wouldn't speak my language. But for some unknown reason, I preserved my language. Today, I have children at home. They learn first the language that was given to us by the Creator. I do not believe in being so disobedient to the Creator. The Creator comes first. I truly believe the creation and the Creator. Any day, I will listen to the Creator before I listen to the government or nobody else. That's how strong I believe. This is the first belief of the Indian people. Therefore, I teach my children to speak their language. But some of us could not help it. Those Indian people that has forgotten their language, they could not help it. But today they have the chance to restore their language. And I'm glad to see this being taught in some of our government schools. Some of the religion that our Indian people practice, there were certain laws passed that we could not take part in this religion, such as the sun dance, in which is known to the northern Indians. This is their religion. Nevertheless, the government passed a law that they could not partake of this type of religion. Why? Who is the man, who is the person that has the authority to tell us how to practice our religion when we were instructed from the early times what to practice? And these are some of the thoughts that I've always had in my heart. And today, I've been traveling all over the country here. In the last 4 weeks, I have visited different universities throughout the North and lectured in these schools. And these are some of the teachings that I am teaching today. Compare both the white man's religion or the white man's Christianity with the Indian religion. What will you find? Indians are believers in the truth. We believe in the truth. We believe in what we see. It is hard for a full-blood Indian to understand something that he cannot see. For that very reason, many years ago, our Indian people, it was hard for them to accept Christianity because they already had a belief that there was a Creator. For some unknown reason, I sometimes think, when we lose our culture and our religion, who is responsible for it? Is it the education? Is it Christianity? Why did we lose? Why are we losing our religion? For a certain length of time, for so many years, we begin to go down. The Indian people begin to lose their ways, and they turned against their own religion. They turned against their own customs. And there was this time, some 30, 40 years ago, when the Indian walked down the streets with his head bowed down in shame. All kinds of jokes was made of him. He was ashamed that he was an Indian, but not no more. Today, the Indian is holding his head up high. He is being identified as an Indian. He is proud today because he knows that he is the Native American. He is the first American. He knows better today. And I'm proud of my younger people because they want to be all Indians and nothing else. I see them standing up today. They want to go in the direction of the Indian. A lot of the older people disagrees with that because they had been brainwashed so long that they begin to feel like that they're citizens and they're not Indians anymore. But there's no change in an Indian. We see that. Over 200 years, what changes come for an Indian? Even though they're still trying. Even though they're still trying to do like everybody else. There's a very little change in the Indian. I, for myself, I would rather take a backward step. One more step, I feel better. Another step, I feel much better. And if I could go all the way back to all Indian life, I would find a pure, clean life. But stepping further, I see disaster. Among this generation, we've always been asked to accept the American way of life. What is American way of life? What is the future for the dominating society? Not too long ago, I came through Detroit. A few years ago, people were running over one another to go into Detroit. And I came through there less than 2 weeks ago. People are running over one another trying to get out of Detroit. So what's going on with the society? My friends, I'll tell you, the city life is coming to an end. I see that in the future. Indianness is a good life because living close to nature is a good life. A satisfactory and a happy life, what can take the place of it? We respect this earth as our Mother Earth because it provides for our clothes. It provides our meals on the table. Even now, not only for the Indian people, for everybody, this earth is their mother. When time comes that you can no longer buy food out of Safeway store, where do you suppose you're going to get your food? When we have wasted this land, when the air is polluted, when the rivers are polluted, who caused it? Is this the will of the Creator? No. That's why I say the Indian life was a pure, clean life. The further back I could go, I would be better off. Because I see that the way of life that I had been told to accept is coming to an end. There's no way we're going to control this polluted air, the polluted rivers, how we're going to clear them out. The city life, what's going to come of the city life? People think that in this country there's no way that we could be starving. We have the best country in the world here. But let's not forget, not too long ago, we had some truck drivers crossing the highways. If those truck drivers would have got right down to business and closed everything off, then what use would Safeway and IGA stores, supermarkets, what use would they be to us when there's nothing there for us to get? Then we would have to turn around and look at Mother Nature. We had to look at our Mother Earth for food and for clothing. Since we are part of this nature, that's why all the Indian problems have existed all through these years. All the wars of years ago, that was the reason for it. No one goes to war just for the fun of it. It's not no fun to be facing guns all the time. There's a reason for it. And that reason was to preserve their culture, to preserve nature. Everything that's put on this earth was put here for use, for our use. So we used everything that was set here for us. Even the trees, the herbs that grow, we used all of it. Then when we see it destroyed, it breaks our hearts. To an Indian, that animal out there is his brother. The birds of the air, they are related to them. All Indian customs were picked up from the creation. In the early times, we had no instructors. We had no schools to attend to. So our ancestors had to turn around and look at nature and consider the ways of nature. The entire Indian civilization was built upon nature. For that reason, the Indian people will fight you in order to preserve that nature. That's where our biggest arguments come from. That's where our biggest problems lies. Because we are related to nature. Being an Indian is not an easy life today in our modern times. It is hard to be an Indian. But if you grow up being an Indian, you're a proud Indian. No matter what the world says, it doesn't bother you. No matter what's going on in the next town, no matter what's going on over here, your belief in the creation will always carry you through. A lot of things happen in this Indian country that we never stop to think about. Being related to nature, you understand nature. I've lived that life for many years. Ever since I was born, I went to my ceremonial grounds before I ever attended any Christian church. I used Indian medicine before I ever used a white man's medicine. There was a time when an Indian could be a citizen and be an Indian at the same time. There was a time when an Indian could be a Christian and still yet be an Indian. But the two roads are beginning to divide today. I see that. It was said from the early times, even the Six Nations, the Iroquois nations, same thing goes for our people, that no one can ride two canoes. They have to ride in one canoe. When the two-row wampum belt was introduced and shown to William Penn, the wampum belt meant the two rows, one row for your people and one row for my people, because no one can walk on both paths. This was approved, this was agreed. This was agreed in the Interior Department. And this has been talked about and mentioned for many, many years. And for that very purpose, treaties were made with individual tribes. More than 370 some odd treaties were made with the Indian people because the two cultures could not go together. The treaties gave them sovereignty rights. They gave them their freedom to have their own government, to practice their own religion, to continue with their own culture. Any way the Indian wanted to live under these treaties, he were permitted to live that life. Because, like from the very beginning, the two cultures could not be combined.
All right, we hope you enjoyed that speech from Phillip Deere, a great part of Muskogee Creek history there, talking about what it means to be Indian then, now, and forever. So it's a great speech there. We love showing it. It's one of our most popular hits on YouTube. So we wanted to just pay tribute to Phillip in that speech again, not only in our opener, but as part of the Sovereignty Symposium there back in the 70s. And we just wanted to give that special treat to our fans, viewers today. Well, folks, speaking of history being made in the Muskogee Creek Nation, this week passed and signed into law, the Muskogee Media is now an independent organization here at the Muskogee Creek Nation. Truly historical, the freedom of the press coming to MCN, the fourth largest tribe in America. We're so incredibly grateful and glad for this, actually, as everybody probably understands. But we'll have way more on that next week. So stay right here with Native News Today. We'll have all kinds of talk about it and break down what it truly means. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time.